Okay, we're in, just listen to CD number 2. And this is working. Just to make sure we can catch sound, I figured out how to use this magic wand here. So we can share this, so we can record it. At least we're at least looking for the audio side of it. So if we don't have the audio side, it's going to not be good. So that was the second CD, went all the way up to page, what page is that? 86. And this was really a lot. There's a lot in this one. And there's one thing I want to ask you guys. I'll pass this around. So if you're going to talk, please use this. Does anybody, what was one word he used a lot in this audio particularly? Anybody have anything? Huh? Franchise. Franchise is one, for sure. Turnkey. Entrepreneur. In chapter 6, he used the word vision a lot. And I just want you to know something. So I always put when I read a book and when I finish reading a book. So I started reading this in October of 2009. And was late October, early November, we had our first vision conference. Just saying. That's where I stole it from. All right. Any comments? Any thoughts?
You can give it to me. I have thoughts as well. All right, so I'm going to go back a little bit, back to one of the earlier chapters. And I wrote this down, and it was when he was discussing why the
63.
Yeah, page 63, where they're discussing why a lot of these businesses didn't work out. And he said if they only would have changed when they started, before they started, to make that plan to be a bigger company, see a bigger picture. And I wrote on here, but how? If you're a tech then, or how would you or could you come into a brand new business thinking about the bigger picture? You don't know what you don't know. And so I made some notes on here, and I actually disagreed with him. I said, I don't agree with these statements that he put on page 64, because he said you should have anticipated growth. You should have anticipated, people to hire and stuff like that. The only reason that anybody would ever change is because of a previous experience. If you're a new person, you have a new business, you don't know these things going into it. So that was one of my bigger complaints. I get what he's saying, hey, you need to see a bigger picture than just a technician would at that point. I get that, as we kind of move through the chapter, but I really had an issue with that. And I wrote that down and made a note that.
Later in the book, though, he addresses that.
Yeah.
The process to go through to figure out how big of a company you want to have.
Sure. Yes.
But you go into business not to be in business. Most people, to be yourself. So to kind of offset what you're saying is, if you're going in business, usually it's so that you get a little freedom back, whether it's money, time, whatever. So you want growth, so that eventually most successful businesses are saying, you know what, I don't want to work as hard. That's why I went into business, is what he's saying. So you got to see the big picture.
How does Woodward say it? He says, work, right?
Yeah.
How's that go?
I don't remember.
Work, get paid.
Yes.
Work, get paid. Work, get paid, get paid, work, get paid, get paid.
Well, I think the important thing to Brent's point, when he brought that up to me earlier, I think the notion of going into business for yourself is a romantic one, but I think it's also oftentimes too much of a knee-jerk reaction by somebody, as opposed to a very well thought out process. I mean, I think the technicians that go into business think of it as, it's easy, and it's the responsibility is not fully understood when it happens. And that's a problem. That's why, they fail so often. You're right.
So on our side of things, and looking at page 64,
It makes a big difference.
I wrote down is thinking of KPIs.
Yeah.
We have KPIs that can tell these guys where they need to be, and they don't always listen to it, but if they would at least look at that and help them build their business with the KPIs that we have.
Does he listen to it, though? I don't know, but he talks about it.
I don't know what fell off.
I kind of on those same lines. I wrote down find someone who knows and do what they do. And that's something we've learned in other things. And like the example that I look back at when I was at the golf club, our general manager retired, he was 73 years old. He came out of retirement to come in, and they didn't know what to do. And it was me and the golf pro that were kind of stuck there. Well, I was like, I don't know, 25 years old, and the golf pro was a golf pro. And they were like, what do we do? They hired a contractor essentially to come in and kind of help with stuff. And we shortly found out that she kind of had this mentality of, I've eaten at a restaurant, so good enough. I can run it. And it was a train wreck. She spent more and more and more and more money on what I say, like the fluff and buff. I mean, we had all new silk flower centerpieces and things like that. And you missed the boat on some of those pieces where we had all of these extremely successful people, member-owned, running this golf club that truly ran probably successful businesses. And they thought, heck, I golf at a golf course. I sit on the board. I can do it. Hire a contractor. And they got someone that could really talk the talk and got in there. And was, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother story on it, because there was just such a piece missing with it. It didn't, me at 25 could understand the fundamentals and kind of run it from that aspect, but you had to have all these people that had a great idea out there come in and say, yeah, this, and they were really the technician piece of it at that point, saying, well, it's the golf club, it's the social aspect. So they found someone that was real sociable, and
Troy has a
she
thought.
sold a great book. Oh, so we should go this way.
Biggest thing I took away on page 65, nothing written, nothing committed to paper, nothing concrete at all. Any plan is better than no plan. Coming into this business, here's my numbers. Oh, I'm going to go get my numbers. Break them down. What do you got to get per day? What do you got to get per week, per month, per dealer? Figure it out. How are you going to do it? What are you going to sell? Next biggest thing is when these guys go into business, it is a knee-jerk reaction. I agree with that. They're going into business to do something better. What's the end game? When they die, the business dies with them. How are they going to close it out? A lot of the guys don't think about that. They just go into business because they're afraid of where the money's going to come in. Where's their next meal for tomorrow? If they sit down and think about it, how are you going to get there? What are you going to get doing? How are you going to get there? What are you going out of it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I've had this conversation with a lot of my dealers. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Do you plan on doing this when you're 72? What's your exit strategy? That's my biggest thing with this and how to do a turnkey franchise going into it.
I was thinking one of the first conversations we should have, with our dealers is build this business like you're going to sell it. Build it exactly. Can't hear it. Sorry. That's okay. I was saying the conversation we should have with our dealer, riffing off of what Troy was saying, is that the conversation should be, build a business like you're going to sell it tomorrow. Build it to where, because on that same page it says the company should work with or without you. So you should build the business as if it's going to work without you and figure out the best way to hand it over to somebody else. Even if you're not going to sell it, even if you want to pass it down to your kids, even if you want to keep it for 50 years, it should be, I'm going to build this to make it as successful as possible and bring that franchise model into it and almost make it a franchise. So it is easy for anybody to come in and run it. That's how I think it should be done.
We all have to realize that we've got dealers that have been around 100 years, and they always did it this way.
Yeah, changing with the times.
And they're not changing with the times. Because I can think of 5 of them right off the top of my head that are going to go, this is the way we've always been doing it. This is the way we're going to keep doing it.
So, here, I'll take it here. You want me to-
You know, everybody's operating spot on. And another thing about the contractors, and not only the contractors, but us included, because each of us individually is this small business. And, you know, to your point, Kyle, is building a business that can be replicated and sold, a brand. And, you know, I tell our contractors that I speak to is that and you're no different than a Budweiser or a GM or a Microsoft. And so, you know, and us individually as our own business owners, you know, we're that same brand. We just happen to have everything already laid out for us, but we're, you know, we have to be that entrepreneur too. And another thing that was spoke on was having a strategic view instead of a tactical view. So looking at it, like you were saying earlier, from afar instead of, you know, down in the trenches. And so, but in order to do that, like you said, they have to look into the future and see what is this business 20 years from now as opposed to today, because they're saying that the technician obviously looks at today and then tries to think, well, how can I keep it the same 10 years from now as opposed to what will it ultimately be as a, you know, a child that's born to an adolescent to an adult. You know, there's got to be growth and progression. So.
I can't resist talking about disruption and feeling the disruption. So we're in an industry of adolescents, right? I mean, we are. So is our time best spent trying to change the industry, or is our time best spent thinking how we're going to franchise as a company, as a district, to how we're going to go after what we have to go after? I mean, that's, I just thought I'd throw it out there because I just find it interesting. Are we going to change an industry, or are we going to change the way we do things to capitalize on the 2 or 3 things that we really need to do to keep the district growing and to capture more market share? So.
I have something to piggyback off of that. Yeah, I have something to piggyback off of that. One of the biggest things I took away before we got into the franchise turnkey stuff was the question becomes, how can we introduce the entrepreneurial model to the technician in such a way that he can understand and utilize it, like you were talking about? The answer is, unfortunately, you can't. The technician isn't interested, and the technician has other things to do. This is, I wrote down here, this is our biggest issue with new business. Because every single time you go into somewhere, they're busy, they don't have the time to meet with you, they're happy keeping their head in the sand on what they're currently doing. They're not open to any new Lennox ideas, even if it is the greatest idea. You know, if you were to give them some wonderful idea, they still don't have the time to meet with you. And so I saw that as directly correlated to new business that we have. Yeah.
Perfect. Troy, is my coat behind you?
No.
Is there a black coat sitting there? Oh, there was.
Over here.
Oh, forget it. In the pocket, can you grab what's in the pocket for me, since you're up? Just hold on a second. Let's see. Lost my keys. Okay, so Brent and Todd. I mean, now it's not in there. Shoot. So you guys started with Mr. Rooney over there, and I totally believe you guys. I totally agree. The guy. Shoot, I lost it. Okay, forget it. All right. Thank you for checking.
Is it a marble?
From here to here to here, but I can tell you this: that on page 83, it talks specifically about this. But what do you guys think? What I think you guys are totally right. Treat it like it's adolescents. They're the brand. Our failure in new business, but we're not treating Lennox like a franchise. I mean, it talks about it right here. I mean, on 83, it talks about the franchise, the key turnkey system is Lennox, and that's what ProTech's looking for. That's what those guys are looking for. But are we presenting it that way? And when you think about it, we talked about this year how Monroe has come out to the dealers and say, "Here's all the things we have." Where do you think that came from? Rich Ford, who came from Lennox, to run Allied. Then he did what he could, then he moved on to his own consulting firm. But and then some things went on there, but whatever. But the thing is, he was teaching them what we already do. But we don't look at it as really what we do. We look at it as we're just Lennox. There's a lot to be said. What if we just act like we're McDonald's and we offer them, so $340,000 a year is 17% on $2 million. And the word for a few years now has been the McDonald's franchises, they put $1.2 million minimum to like 2.5 in, and they've got to have 2 years of savings for their income. And then after the third year, they start putting $300,000 to $350,000 in their pocket. 17%. Crazy. What are we doing to talk to our dealers about what we're bringing to their table? If they use our turnkey system, which is Cap Dealer, Premier Dealer, Vision Tech, Feel Love, Vision, Lennox Live, HVLS, benefit report, a giveaway report, that's part of it. All those different things is our franchise, our turnkey. So maybe coming out of this whole entire process, maybe what we need to think about is how do we develop our turnkey process?
Or selling our turnkey.
Selling it. We already have it. How do we put it together and present it correctly?
Me and you were talking about in the car about new business, and I said, what if we had a process that was exclusive to Lennox? You said, well, we already do. Tom Tao has one. I said, yes, he has one, but what if we drilled it down to a Wisconsin new business? So the stores knew it exactly what the TMs were doing every step of the way. And we, Vision is in that, Feel the Love is in that, those are things that are, exclusive to us. So what if we created a new business turnkey process?
So could you put a franchise, it wouldn't be called a franchise price tag on it, but a format that would say, but could you say, I'll tell you what, you're a new business, here's our system, here's what's included, here's what we charge per year. You bring your employees, you're going to pay, $1,000 a month. So it pays for the fall Vision, pays for Vision Tech, it pays for Lennox Live, it pays for whatever you want to put on there. So you put 2 or 3 different packages together, here's your franchise price tag.
I think we have to be careful with terminology.
Yeah.
I'm just using that, but I'm saying, here's what's included. It's a partnership.
And
You think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before we had the stores. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, before we had the stores, you had 4 territory managers going out, right? What do you have now? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 people in the district, including CSAs, going out and selling. I mean, you guys territory managers do a very good job of going out and selling the systems that we have. Can you imagine if we all were on the same page?
Right, everybody's at different spots in that.
And I guess that's my point, is if everyone was at the same spot.
Right. No, you can't be. I mean, you have to, your brain can only handle so much. Like, I'm looking at I'm looking at Kyle coming into our industry and bringing tons of knowledge and all kinds of skills that he has that we really need. But he's seeing the business a year at a time, kind of in a way, right? I mean, you're seeing it, you're like, here's how it is. And then you're ready for it, you go at it. And the next year turns the corner, you're like, I did that last year, but oh man, I see this now. It's just the way we think. I mean, it's normal, it's good.
well, what I would like to do, since I'm talking on Thursday for new business, I had something else kind of drawn up, but I kind of want to do this instead. What if for Thursday we did a workshop and put together our franchise model on Thursday? That's what we did. We broke up into groups, and we put together the franchise model. So that way, when we're going out, I can tell Eric, okay, I'm going to X, Y, and Z dealer. We're on step 3 or level, whatever we term, So then you tell Alec, and then when you get a phone call, you can follow up on, say, hey, that Lennox Pros process, how did it go? And there's also, I'm on the Salesforce steering committee, and we are close to being able to actually send direct communication out to dealers using digital content that we have available to us. So if it is on Lennox Pros, we can send out here's how to set up your Lennox Pros, here's how to get all your technicians signed up, and we email that dealer before we go out to them that day. So I kind of would like to do this on Thursday if everyone's okay with it, and then we can finalize it and have it ready for the fourth quarter and into 2019. So that's it.
That's all the notes I had.
Finalize the furnace package.
Anybody else? Jeff?
Get that out there.
Our senator from Green Bay.
I like to be.
He yields the floor.
I like to play hockey.
Funny. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but my mindset right now is totally different. Like when I first read the book, we talked about it before we first sat down, was how it relates to the dealers, right? Like different dealers came to your mind, and we started listening to the book today. I started thinking more about myself and how it relates to like our own business, right? And that's obviously what led to the conversation right now. So it's kind of like my gears are kind of shifting a little bit. I'm thinking of it a different way. It's funny what happens when you read the book a second time. Charlie had brought up a good idea about, like the $1,000 for the franchise fee or whatever you want to call it, which we can come up with a name for it, but really it's pretty much what everybody else is doing already. It's a fee. So we had different levels when I was at Our Steel. We had a $500 level. We had a $2,000, $3,000. I think it was even a $5,000 level. So I mean, it would be something very similar. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a great idea. I definitely like what Kyle's talking about. I like coming up with a plan. When we leave these meetings, I like having a plan and setting that in motion. I think it's going to take a lot of the TMs and the store managers working together during their meetings, however often we can meet, and reviewing those plans too as well, and just coming up with who's going to be able to do what. Because we talked about the store managers and CSAs helping, the TMs. I think we can definitely do that. We can make the time to help out. Someone can follow up and set up, plans to go through Lennox Pros and do different things like that. That'll free you guys up to do more sales and get those relations and get that flowing.
Using the resources in Dallas with that team called
Customer success.
Customer Success Group.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's kind of where I'm at with everything. So.
Really good. Mike, you're quiet.
I was just talking. You want something else? I had one other point written down on here, and it said not what's made, but how it is and how it's delivered. And then I added in and how it's seen from the customer's point of view. And I think as we're kind of talking about this franchise idea that we'll do as a district and bring that out there, like we're Lennox franchise, even though we have all this stuff, we're not at the point to come out and be like, what's like McDonald's? Don't you want to buy a McDonald's? Because if they wanted to buy a McDonald's, they probably would have bought a McDonald's. So we still have to give them the idea behind it, right? To sell them on the idea that it's vision, it's feel the love, it's Vision Tech, it's Lennox Live, it's all of those CAP and Premier Dealer and stuff. Because or else they're just going to say, well, that's fantastic, a dealer fee or a franchise fee or whatever it might be, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything because they can't see the sesame seed bun and the special sauce and the what everybody knows from that.
Exactly, good time.
No, on your point, the true product of the business is a business itself, not what we're selling. Right. And that's kind of what you were getting to.
It's how they build their business.
True. That's also, our business is a business itself, and so is theirs. That's what they have to understand.
So let me interrupt this thought, man. Hold on. Please keep that.
Oh, sure.
Real quick question. So is Lennox a system business or a people business?
Are you asking me because I was on the people side of that disc? Okay.
I am thinking of that coming through this chapter.
Yeah.
And I think it may have changed.
I think everything that we're doing as a company, we want to make it a system That's what we want to do. I mean, Brent talked about that a little bit earlier. But at the heart, or at the the nitty gritty of everything we do, it's a people business. So we are very torn. Every day we're torn, and you can't have one without the other. I'm not going to start singing, but yeah, it's very true. You can't define it. It's not solely defined in one of those. I am torn. I don't know who to give this to.
So with what you just said, and I know that the territory managers are very familiar with this, store managers probably not so much, but the signature sales model, I think everything from pre-call prep to tailoring a solution, all this, so this side of the page, so when you talk about putting a plan together, it's all this stuff, right? And this is the franchise side of the thing.
Is anybody else ever uncomfortable when they put a customer down here? Because I get really uncomfortable down here. I feel bad for them. I kind of pull them out of there quicker than I should.
There are a lot of different ways to do it. I don't think.
Relationship to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And I think it depends on the relationship when you bring them down there too. I think you gauge that. You try to gauge that at a certain point in your communication where.
Yeah, it's one of the two pieces that Steve would add. Making them feel the pain, understand the game.
And you can really only do that if you're a people company, when you think about it, right?
Yeah, system can't point that out.
No. So.
Next house we need to
I just have to talk.
Let's mic us all up next time.
I know we all need lavaliers microphones next, but I want to be quickly. I just want to throw a little caution to the wind here, because in franchises, if you read through a lot of the stuff, what they talk about is it's very policy and procedure heavy. They talk about Ray Kroc being very detailed with all of his machinery, all of his biggest thickness of the patties, stuff like that. So we can't say this is kind of like a true franchise, because we're really not getting into the nitty gritty of policies and procedures.
I don't see any of that. Right. Just like the customer, we walk into their business and try to sell them, they don't see all this.
I think it's a franchise
On our side.
but it's not called that.
I'm just saying you have to be a little right. But
I don't want heat up, I don't want vision.
Then I think we have learned through the process that we treat it as an RNCD.
yep, exactly.
Price only, no support, really no support.
Right.
A lot different, you're gonna be treated.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right. You have to have those. You have to have those dealers as well.
Here's the benefits. If a TM is selling it correctly, he will show the value behind it and probably show more. Well,
Don't put
he's
this
an
on-
exception.
don't put this on.
But I think,
All of those are our proposals,
right.
and how we create our proposals with the dollar value. Because obviously, if they're a new customer, we're giving them all of these things to be
Right.
part of our franchise.
Right. It's all in how it's presented with value. If they don't see the value, I mean, you look at Superior up here. Who the hell set me up? Dirty dogs.
Can't handle a microphone.
But I didn't wreck it, did I?
No, you didn't.
How rough you are in it.
But yes,
On my other mic? Not really. I don't talk into it. I don't talk into it
we'll edit that.
like Troy does, but
Yeah, I'd say you're done.
Okay, we crossed the line, cut.
I would screw that back in.
Yeah, I bet you would.
I tried.
Here, put your glasses on.
I think we have to make sure we're presenting it to them as a customer they're receiving from the outside. We can't go. That's take it from an outside in approach,
we also
not
have
from the
dealers,
inside out.
we also have dealers that don't advertise a brand. They are the brand. We have dealers that don't advertise a brand.
Like Hurlburt.
Yeah.
Which they only need certain pieces, but although if we had if we had what they felt was more value, they would use more of the pieces,
Yes, yeah.
you know?
We have to look at it as that's their loss if they don't want to do it.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So speaking of those things real quick, so I make sure it's on audio. Hello, hello. I talked to Greg. Well, I did talk to Greg Hurlbert. I know Jeff Blumke wants to be on the DAC, and I talked to Greg about considering being a DAC. So interesting fact, and this is a change, something to throw past you guys for approval, not the DAC, to you guys first. And then if you guys like it, then we go talk to them. But I think adding 2 more strong people to the DAC will be huge, because I know Kendall's ready to step back, which would bring us to 15 temporarily, then to 14. But that also covers for people that can't make all the meetings. So we still have a good body of people with a broad spectrum. So I think it's appropriate. I think it makes sense, just so you guys know. So I think both Greg and Jeff would bring a lot to the team.
I didn't have others drop off anyways.
Yeah. Anything else? Really good stuff. And just so you guys know, those that have gone just a little bit further, it just gets more heated because it's more intense. It's just awesome. Good. So we made it through first two audios. Thank you. 5 more to go.